What if the very thing you are praying for is delayed? Not because God is withholding favor, but because it is producing anxiety instead of peace. Many people believe that blessing is measured by increase. More money, more influence, more responsibility, more visibility, but there is a hidden law that governs divine increase, a law rarely preached, yet consistently proven. God does not finance what fractures your peace. There are people who pray passionately for elevation, yet live perpetually anxious. They ask God to expand their territory, but their inner world is already collapsing under pressure. They ask for more doors to open, while their soul is begging for rest. Heaven watches not only what you request, but what your spirit can sustain. This is why some opportunities never manifest. Some breakthroughs remain delayed, and some doors quietly close without explanation. It is not rejection, it is protection. God will never enrich what destabilizes your inner order. If peace leaves when increase arrives, then increase is no longer a blessing, it becomes a burden. And God does not burden his people with gifts that destroy their alignment. Stay with this message until the end, because understanding this law will save you years of striving, frustration, and silent burnout. What you are about to hear may redefine how you pray, how you pursue success, and how you discern divine favor. Peace is not something God adds to success after the fact. It is the authorization that precedes it. Before heaven releases increase, it releases calm. Before expansion is allowed to manifest externally, stability must be established internally. This is why peace cannot be treated as an emotional luxury or a personality preference. It is a governing signal. When peace is present, it indicates that what is unfolding is moving at the speed of grace. When peace is absent, it reveals that something is being forced, rushed, or pursued outside of divine timing. Many people assume that discomfort is the evidence of growth, but not all discomfort comes from transformation. Some discomfort comes from violation. Growth stretches, but it does not torment. Expansion challenges, but it does not dismantle the inner world. When God is involved, pressure may exist, but panic does not dominate. Pressure refines, panic fractures. God refines, he does not fracture. Peace is how the soul recognizes the difference between divine stretching and human striving. There are opportunities that look impressive on the surface, yet carry an invisible tax on the spirit. They demand constant mental engagement, relentless self-protection, and unending vigilance. These opportunities drain peace because they were never meant to be sustained by grace. God does not approve what requires anxiety to maintain. Anything that needs fear to keep it alive is already disconnected from divine flow. Peace exposes this disconnect long before collapse becomes visible to others. When increase is authorized by God, it brings clarity rather than confusion. Decisions become simpler, not more chaotic. Direction becomes sharper, not more scattered. Even when complexity increases, the heart remains anchored. Peace does not mean the absence of responsibility. It means the presence of order. God's order settles the soul even while the assignment grows. Without that order, increase becomes overwhelming instead of empowering. Many mistake restlessness for calling. They feel compelled to move, to build, to achieve, yet their spirit is constantly unsettled. This restlessness is often interpreted as passion, but passion rooted in God carries peace within it. Divine passion burns steadily. It does not consume the one carrying it. When passion destroys peace, it is no longer sacred fire. It has become self-generated pressure masquerading as purpose. Peace is also how God preserves identity during expansion. Without peace, people begin to morph into what the assignment demands instead of remaining who they were designed to be. They become reactive, guarded, and internally fragmented. God does not promote at the cost of authenticity. When peace governs growth, identity remains intact even as influence increases. The person does not disappear inside the platform. God's approval is not measured by how fast doors open, but by how deeply peace remains when they do. Rapid access without inner stability creates anxiety because the soul knows it is standing on unstable ground. Peace confirms that the foundation is secure. It assures the heart that what has been received will not require the soul to be sacrificed to keep it. This is why peace must be protected more fiercely than opportunity. Opportunity without peace is a trap disguised as favor. Peace without opportunity is preparation disguised as delay. Heaven prioritizes preservation over acceleration. God would rather keep you whole than make you impressive. When peace is present, it signals that what is unfolding will not violate your inner structure. It confirms that increase will not demand the erosion of joy, the loss of rest, or the collapse of spiritual clarity. Peace is not the reward of divine approval. It is the evidence that approval has already been granted. Anxiety is not a harmless emotional companion to ambition. It is a signal that something is out of alignment. It was never designed to be normalized or celebrated as evidence of drive or seriousness. Anxiety functions like an internal alarm, alerting the soul that it is carrying weight it was not designed to bear alone. When this alarm is ignored, people begin to build lives that look successful on the outside while silently deteriorating on the inside. Many have been taught to reinterpret anxiety as passion, pressure as purpose, and restlessness as destiny. This misinterpretation causes people to override the very mechanism God placed within them to protect their inner world. Anxiety is not weakness, it is communication. It speaks when peace has been displaced, when pace exceeds grace, and when desire has overtaken discernment. God does not communicate only through external signs, He also speaks through the condition of the soul. When anxiety becomes constant, it is no longer a reaction to circumstances, but a revelation of misalignment. Something is moving without spiritual authorization. The mind begins to race, not because of productivity, but because of insecurity. The heart remains unsettled, not because of responsibility, but because of internal conflict. Anxiety surfaces when the soul senses it is being pushed into spaces that require self-sufficiency instead of divine support. God never intended ambition to be stained by nervous energy. Anything built on anxiety will demand anxiety to maintain it. This is why certain achievements never bring relief, only the fear of losing what was gained. Anxiety does not disappear after success when success was pursued outside of peace. It intensifies. The goalpost moves, the pressure increases, and the soul remains on edge because the foundation was unstable from the beginning. Anxiety also reveals timing. Some things are not wrong, they are premature. The soul recognizes this before the mind does. When timing is off, anxiety emerges as resistance. It is the spirit saying that preparation is incomplete, alignment is unfinished, or identity has not yet caught up with assignment. God does not release weight before strengthening capacity. Anxiety arises when weight arrives before readiness. There is a difference between challenge and threat. Challenge stimulates growth while threat activates fear. Anxiety often indicates that the soul perceives the situation as a threat rather than a challenge. This perception matters. God challenges, but he does not threaten his own design. When something feels threatening to your peace consistently, it is revealing a misalignment either in motive, method, or timing. Many people attempt to silence anxiety through distraction, achievement, or affirmation, but anxiety cannot be healed by external validation. It must be addressed through realignment. The question is not how to manage anxiety, but what anxiety is pointing to. When alignment is restored, anxiety loses its power because the soul is no longer resisting its own direction. God's guidance often becomes clearer when anxiety is acknowledged rather than suppressed. The moment a person stops justifying unrest and starts discerning it, clarity begins to emerge. Anxiety exposes the places where trust has shifted from God to outcome, from purpose to performance, from obedience to control. These shifts are subtle, but the soul recognizes them immediately. Peace returns when responsibility is carried in partnership rather than isolation. Anxiety thrives in self-reliance. It weakens when surrender is restored. God never asks for independence, he invites dependence. When anxiety is present, it is often an invitation to release what was never meant to be carried alone. The soul was not designed to function as its own source of security. Anxiety is not an enemy to be conquered. It is a messenger to be understood. It arrives not to shame, but to warn. Ignoring it hardens the heart, but listening to it softens direction. When the alarm is honored, correction happens early, damage is minimized, and peace is restored. Anxiety's purpose is not to dominate the soul, but to redirect it back into alignment where grace flows freely. Desire alone has never been enough to qualify something for divine provision. Wanting something deeply does not mean it is aligned correctly. Many people pray from appetite rather than assignment. An appetite is loud, urgent, and impatient. Assignment is quieter, steadier, and anchored in peace. God responds to alignment, not intensity. He funds what reflects his order, not what amplifies human craving. Appetite is often formed by comparison. It sees what others have, how others are progressing, and begins to measure worth through visibility and speed. This creates goals that are emotionally charged but spiritually hollow. These pursuits demand constant affirmation and external validation because they were never rooted in divine instruction. When provision is chased for the sake of proving something, peace becomes collateral damage. God does not resource insecurity because insecurity can never be satisfied. Alignment, on the other hand, begins with obedience. It does not ask whether something look impressive, it asks whether it is assigned. Assigned pursuits carry a sense of inner permission. Even when difficult, they do not violate the soul. There is coherence between effort and identity. The work fits the person. God's provision flows naturally toward what he has authorized because it reflects his intention, not human ambition. Many confuse open doors with divine approval. Doors can open through skill, charisma, or persistence, but provision without peace reveals a mismatch. God may allow access, but he does not empower misalignment. When something is outside assignment, it requires excessive effort to sustain. The soul becomes tired not from work but from resistance. Alignment reduces friction. Appetite increases it. God's resources are not scarce, but they are precise. He does not pour provision randomly. He directs it purposefully. This precision is why some people labor endlessly with little return, while others move steadily with sustained supply. It is not about worthiness, it is about placement. When something is planted in the wrong soil, no amount of watering will make it flourish. Provision follows placement. Appetite-driven pursuits often begin with excitement but end in anxiety. The initial rush fades, replaced by the pressure to perform, maintain, and compete. This cycle creates spiritual exhaustion. God never intended his people to live in perpetual urgency. Assignment brings rhythm. There is work and rest, effort and recovery, expansion and stillness. Appetite ignores rhythm and demands constant motion. Alignment also protects motive. When something is assigned, motive remains clean even under pressure. The goal is not self-glorification, but faithful execution. This purity allows God to trust the individual with more. Provision increases where stewardship is evident. Appetite-driven goals distort motive over time, shifting focus from serve. Ice to survival, from purpose to preservation of image. God's funding is relational, not transactional. He invests where trust is present. Trust is built through obedience, not insistence. When someone insists on a path God did not assign, heaven may remain silent, not out of rejection, but out of restraint. God will not finance rebellion disguised as ambition. Silence is often a form of guidance. Alignment also brings sustainability. What God funds does not collapse under its own weight. It grows with you, not ahead of you. Capacity expands alongside responsibility. Appetite-driven expansion outruns capacity, creating stress, fear, and instability. God's provision arrives at the pace of transformation, ensuring the soul is not overwhelmed by what the hands are holding. When appetite is surrendered, clarity emerges. The noise of comparison quiets, and the voice of direction becomes clearer. Provision begins to flow not because the desire was strong, but because the alignment is correct. God funds what mirrors his intent, what serves his purpose, and what preserves the peace of the one carrying it. Anything that is truly from God must be able to coexist with stillness. If what you are pursuing demands constant mental noise, relentless strategizing, and unbroken vigilance, it is revealing its source. God's gifts do not require anxiety to survive. They are not fragile, nor do they collapse the moment attention is removed. What God gives remains secure even when you step away, even when you rest, even when you are silent. Silence exposes the true nature of what you are carrying. When the external activity stops and the inner world is left alone with the responsibility, peace or unrest becomes undeniable. If silence feels threatening, it is often because something is being held together by fear rather than grace. God's blessings do not panic in quiet moments. They settle. They integrate. They belong. Many people fear silence because it confronts them with what they have built. Noise can mask misalignment. Activity can delay awareness. Constant engagement becomes a defense mechanism against inner discomfort. But what is from God does not resist examination. It does not need distraction to remain convincing. In silence, divine assignments grow clearer, not more confusing. What God releases into your life must be able to sit with you in rest without accusing you. It must not whisper that you are falling behind, missing out, or about to lose everything if you stop moving. Accusation is not a tool God uses to sustain purpose. When rest produces guilt instead of renewal, Something has attached itself to your identity that was never meant to define you. Divine blessings integrate into life. They do not dominate it. They do not consume every mental resource or emotional reserve. They make space for relationships, reflection, and restoration. If what you are pursuing erodes your ability to be present, it is revealing a misalignment in priority or origin. God's gifts expand life, they do not shrink it. Silence also reveals trust. If you cannot step back without fear of collapse, then control has replaced dependence. God does not ask for control, he invites trust. What is sustained by him does not require micromanagement. Anxiety-driven maintenance reveals a lack of confidence in divine covering. God does not assign anything that requires you to become its savior. There is a difference between responsibility and obsession. Responsibility is healthy, bounded, and sustainable. Obsession is endless and consuming. Silence amplifies this difference. In silence, responsibility feels weighty but manageable. Obsession feels unbearable. God does not burden the soul with obsessions. He entrusts responsibilities that align with capacity and calling. When something is truly aligned, silence becomes restorative rather than threatening. It allows the soul to recalibrate, to hear clearly, to rest without fear. This does not mean effort disappears, but it means effort is no longer frantic. Movement flows from clarity rather than compulsion. The pace is governed by wisdom, not urgency. Many blessings have been mislabeled simply because they were never tested by silence. They looked productive in motion but revealed instability in rest. God tests sustainability before he multiplies. If something cannot survive quiet seasons, it cannot be trusted in public ones. Silence is not inactivity, it is examination. God's design includes cycles of engagement and withdrawal. Even creation reflects this rhythm. What is divine fits into this pattern without resistance. When something demands constant engagement to remain viable, it is revealing that it is feeding on your energy rather than being fueled by grace. God's gifts bring nourishment back to the soul, even as they require output. Silence does not diminish what God gives, it strengthens it. What weakens in silence was never meant to be carried forward. What remains peaceful in silence confirms its place in your life and its alignment with divine intention. Delay is often interpreted as rejection, but in divine order, delay frequently functions as mercy. What appears to be God withholding is often God protecting. The human perspective measures progress by speed, but heaven measures readiness by stability. God is never in a hurry to release what could harm the one receiving it. When peace is not yet established, increase becomes dangerous rather than beneficial. Many prayers are sincere but premature. The desire may be genuine, but the internal structure required to sustain the answer is still forming. God does not answer requests in isolation from the soul's condition. He responds to the whole person. Delay allows alignment to deepen, motives to be refined, and identity to mature. What feels like denial is often divine timing refusing to be rushed. God values preservation over acceleration. He is more concerned with who you become than what you obtain. Rapid promotion without inner grounding leads to instability. The weight of success exposes fractures that were invisible in obscurity. Delay prevents exposure before reinforcement. It is not a sign of divine disinterest, but of careful oversight. There are moments when God slows external progress to address internal unrest, Anxiety cannot coexist with sustainable blessing. If peace is absent, God withholds increase not to punish, but to prevent collapse. Increase amplifies whatever already exists within. If anxiety dominates, expansion multiplies it. Delay creates space for peace to take root before multiplication occurs. Many people rush toward answers without considering consequences. They pray for open doors without asking whether their soul can handle what lies beyond them. God sees beyond access. He sees endurance. He sees what pressure will reveal. Delay is God ensuring that what is gained will not later need to be survived. Silence during delay is not abandonment. It is often an invitation to realign. God speaks most clearly when external noise quiets. Delay forces reflection, adjustment, and surrender. It removes the illusion that progress depends solely on effort. In waiting, dependence is restored and trust is strengthened. Some doors are intentionally closed temporarily because opening them too early would distort purpose. God's timing protects integrity. When something arrives before peace is established, it reshapes the soul around fear instead of faith. Delay prevents this distortion. It allows character to grow faster than opportunity. Delay also exposes attachments. Waiting. Hidden motives surface. The soul confronts whether it desires the gift more than alignment, outcome more than obedience. God does not shame these discoveries. He uses them to cleanse intention. What remains after delay is often purer and more sustainable. God's mercy is often disguised as inconvenience. Waiting feels uncomfortable because it confronts impatience and self-reliance. Yet this discomfort is formative. Delay teaches rhythm, discernment, and trust. It trains the soul to move at the pace of grace rather than urgency. When peace is finally established, increase arrives differently. It does not overwhelm, it integrates. The soul is not startled by success because it has already learned stillness. Delay ensures that when blessing comes, it does not feel foreign or threatening. Many look back on seasons of delay and recognize them as the most protective moments of their lives. They prevented alliances that would have drained them, opportunities that would have consumed them, and successes that would have fractured their inner world. What felt like stagnation was actually shelter. God's refusal to rush is an expression of love. He does not sacrifice the soul for the sake of speed. Delay is not the absence of blessing. It is the preparation that makes blessing survivable. When peace is secured, delay gives way to movement that does not steal rest or clarity. What arrives after delay arrives without anxiety, without fear, and without the need to prove its worth. True wealth begins where peace resides. Many pursue increase, financial gain, recognition, influence, without understanding that the foundation of all sustainable success is internal calm. Without peace, external gains are fragile, unstable, and often destructive. God does not enrich chaos, He invests in stability. The soul that remains anchored while expansion occurs is the one that can sustain. Blessing without collapse. Peace governs clarity. When the mind is unsettled, decisions are clouded by fear, insecurity, and impatience. Opportunity may arrive, but the ability to steward it effectively diminishes in the presence of anxiety. Divine provision flows best where the heart is quiet, where judgment is not compromised by stress, and where vision is not fragmented by worry. Without internal order, even the most promising breakthroughs are vulnerable to mismanagement